the green light, ooh, I can even hear myself. Wow. Everybody can hear me? Is it too loud? Is it okay? Okay, then the boss has to do it, not me. First of all, I want to tell you thank you. I couldn't believe that this day was going to be like this. I was hoping for snow to bring people. So thank you for being here. I realize we could all be out enjoying the beautiful world out there. But anyway, okay, I'm going to be talking to you today about climate change. And as Fred was saying, I really have a very strong biological leaning this way. If you get offended by that, we can talk about it afterwards, okay? Because I do know that it is important to people, but plants and animals often get the short shrift, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen today. Yeah, I was hitting the right button.
No? Is it? It says it's working.
It should do that. Is it frozen?
I don't know what it's doing.
No, it started. It's going. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's go down now.
Go here.
Yeah. Let's try that again. Okay, now. Okay. Okay, if you need to. Okay, this is just my roadmap of what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm first going to talk to you about climate change since the 1850s. Why the 1850s? That is because before the 1850s, humans didn't have anything to do with the climate. So this is what natural. So I'm saying from natural to where we are now, and that will show us what's gone on with people. The next thing I want to talk to you about is future climate change. And I don't have a crystal ball to look in. I do have an IPCC cloudy crystal ball to look in, and we're going to look through that to see what might be coming in the future. Then I'm going to talk to you about other species, because other species are going to be affected, and what happens to them is going to be happening to us too. Now, I want to guarantee you something. By the end of number 3, you all are going to be really depressed. Okay? All right. If you have to leave before the end of the talk, get up and go now, so you're not depressed. Nobody can leave. Debbie, you have to lock the doors. Nobody can leave until they see number 4, because that's when I bring everybody back up and say, there are lots that we can do, okay? So don't get really discouraged if you're really depressed. I'm gonna try and do it here. Ha! Okay, what this is gonna show now is what the temperature is. It should be. Okay, you're gonna have to push the button. Go forward. What is the matter here? Well, what this... There we go. Okay, what this is it is showing you temperature. It has years in the middle, and it's weird. The months are around the edges. And it's showing you what the temperature, the actual temperature is in degrees Fahrenheit, and it is the change from the average before humans had an impact on climate change. So the average from 1850 to 1900, so it's taking the temperature of that particular time and subtracting away that and telling you what it is and how close it is. So the 0 line is saying that the change is 0. Now we have it going up all the way to 1 degree Fahrenheit. And now as it's getting warmer and warmer and later, you can see that it's approaching 2 degrees difference. So what that's saying is we have 2 degrees difference since the average before people actually were changing the climate. So we're talking about people not changing the climate back here, and now you can see the plants, actually, the plants and animals, the birds told me that when we really started seeing a change was about 1975. So from 1975 on, it started to get warmer. And the birds were doing things in 1975. And you can see how there really has been a change. You're going to have to do it. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so this is now showing you what the change, again, it's change in the temperature from this earlier time. And this is in degrees C. And I'm going to be flipping back and forth from degrees C to degrees F. I apologize. I've tried to put things in F that I could. This is showing you what the temperature was, the global temperature, global average temperature, before 1950, all the way back to 24,000 years ago. 24,000 years ago. Next slide, Fred. This is what it looked like 24,000 years ago. That's what our globe looked like. Look at all the white. It has the ice on it. And then for 12,000 years ago, the ice is receding a bit. Next slide. By 6,000 years ago, we really haven't had much of a change. And I want you to note this. From here on, it's fairly stable. The temperature is fairly stable. There hasn't been, I mean, there's been jiggling around, yes, of course, but it hasn't changed like it has before. And then this is a cut here because we have, the plot was going to be too big. And now all of a sudden, whoa, what's going on here? That's us. That's what's going on there. So next slide. This is what the planet now looks like in 2020. Look at how warm the Arctic is getting. The Arctic getting warm is really a concern because it has to do with the winter vortices that we're having and the cold that we're having. We can talk about that. But anyway, I want to show you how stable it had been, and now all of a sudden it's not. And it hasn't been doing anything like that before. Next slide. This now is showing you the warm summer nights, the average low temperatures in summer nights for all of the United States since Earth Day. So since 1970. And you can see it has decreased by 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the whole US. Next slide. This is for Albuquerque and Santa Fe. The exact same plot for Albuquerque and Santa Fe, but it's gone up 5 degrees, twice as fast as the average for the US. That makes you stop and pause too. Next slide. This is for Albuquerque and Santa Fe. This is the winter warming. It's not nearly as strong. It's not up to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's 3 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's getting warm in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Next slide. And this now is showing you overall for, here's the United States. The temperature change in Fahrenheit since 1970 has been about 2.6 degrees warming. New Mexico has been 3.5, and Albuquerque and Santa Fe is 3.5. So we are going hot, we are going faster, we're getting warmer than the average of the US, but the US is also getting warmer. Next slide. This is showing you about precipitation. We always talk about temperature. I wanted to say something about precipitation. So the spring is when we have our biggest changes occurring right now for Albuquerque and Santa Fe. There's some in winter, a little more in summer, and some in fall, but the spring is where we really are not getting the precipitation we want. And here's our annual precipitation for Albuquerque and Santa Fe. So yes, it is getting drier, for sure. Next slide. This is something we worry about with fires. We got here last March, and we were through the fires. We were staying in an RV park out there where all the smoke was. This is the fire weather days. This is telling you how hot, dry, and windy it is going to be. This is from 1973, not 1970. It's going up to 2021. And it has increased by 59 days. So why are we having more fires? This is why we're having more fires. It's hotter, it's drier, and windy. Next slide. This is what is actually causing all of this. This is showing you concentration of greenhouse gases, and this is from the IPCC, the brand new one that just came out. So we have CO2 is in red. This is the one we talk about all the time. And then here you have methane is in green, and nitrous oxide is in purple. And you can see it is all of them, all of these plots are pretty much, there's variability, they're Milankovitch cycles, we can talk about that if you want to, but they're pretty much, this one, next slide, this one doesn't go above 300 parts per million of CO2, and this goes all the way back 800,000 years ago. So for 800,000 years, the CO2 has not been above 300 parts per million until here. And that's us. That's us doing it again. Next slide. And yesterday, I looked this up. What is the parts per million of CO2? You can look it up yourselves. It's kind of fun. You go to Bloomberg Climate Clock, and you just type that into Google, and it'll get you to the clock, and it'll show you, right now, we are at 422 parts per million for CO2. And before that, we never got above 300.
When was the last ice age?
I don't know. I can't tell you that. He asked me when the last ice age was. Okay? But people will often say this is all natural because it's cycling. Yes, you can see the cycling. But folks, it's not going above 300. The reason we're going above 300 is because of us. Next slide. Now, let's talk about us. This is cumulative CO2 emissions from 1750 to 2019, and this is billions of metric tons. Billions of metric tons. So the US has 410 billion metric tons been put, that's how much the US has put up into the atmosphere. The next country is China, which is about half, a little bit more than half. And then the rest fall down. But I want you to understand that when the US says we need to do something, we need to do something. The amount of CO2 that is up in the atmosphere right now is primarily put up there because of the US. The changes that we're having right now is primarily because of what we did during this time period to put CO2 up into the atmosphere. And people will say, oh, we don't have to do anything because the Chinese are going to go crazy. The Indians are going to go crazy. They're going to take over. We can't do anything. That is not true. We have to face reality. We have to face the fact that the US are the ones that put most of the CO2 in the atmosphere that we have right now. Next slide. This is now just showing you how things have changed. On the x-axis is years from 1990 to 2021, and this is emissions in per capita now, per capita. And per capita is important because that tells you how much people are, an individual is actually using. And you can see the pandemic here. On almost every single one of these, there's a little bitty downturn. But unfortunately, there's a little bitty upturn. Actually, that's a pretty big upturn that has happened since the pandemic. Shoot, we wish that hadn't happened. But US is coming down, woohoo, that's good, we gotta do that. We're coming down. Russia is going up, not good. Japan is going down. China is coming up. These are per capita, it's not per country. So this is how the people are being affected here. Next slide. Okay, that tells you what's gone on since the 1850s. Now let's talk, oh, I forgot to tell you something. Let's talk about future climate change. Before we do that, I'm a bird person. That's actually how I got into this business, is through birds. The Audubon Society has done a spectacular study, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while. And if you put in your zip code into the computer, it will tell you what birds are going to be at risk if we go up 3 degrees Celsius above natural, above the 1850s to 1900 time period. So the Wilson warbler, which is a warbler that nests in New Mexico now, when we go up by 3 degrees, or let's hope it's if we go up by 3 degrees, the Wilson's warbler will not be in New Mexico. It will be at highly risked. So all of the birds that I have labeled like this, all of them are at risk. Next slide. Okay, this is an old slide, but I love it. It's from the 2016 IPCC. And what it was the IPCC looking into their cloudy crystal ball and say, what might be going on up to 2100? And it is a cloudy crystal ball. We don't really know. This black line is business as usual. Nothing's going to change. We're going to stay exactly the same. That's what they were predicting. This is saying that we're going to have a much more cooperative world, and we're going to share technologies and information and all of this. That's what these two are. This one is a little bit interesting. And this tells you a lot about CO2. This was done in 2016. And the scientists said that they are going to snap their fingers and stop all greenhouse gases from going up into the atmosphere right then, as if by magic. They wanted to see what would happen to this line. If they stop putting CO2 up there, this is CO2 equivalent. Equivalent means greenhouse gases. So it's CO2 plus other greenhouse gases. What's going to happen to those greenhouse gases? Well, if you stop them all, you'd think it would come right back down. It doesn't. Look at that. Look at how long it stays up there. Do you know why? Because the CO2 stays in the atmosphere for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. So the CO2 that each of us puts out right now is going to be affecting 40 generations. So my great, 39 great grandchildren are affected by what I am doing today. That's pretty sobering. So when we put CO2 in the atmosphere, how do we get it out? With trees and plants. That's how we get it out. Now, the other greenhouse gases are different. The nitrous oxide comes out more easily, the methane comes out more easily, but CO2 doesn't. So we have got to do something about CO2. Where's CO2 coming from? Fossil fuels. We have got to do something about fossil fuels. And we can, but I'll talk about that later. Next slide. So what's the temperature going to look like given all of those plots? If we go up 4 degrees C, and oh please, we can't go up 4 degrees C, this is what our planet will look like. The amount of suffering by plants, animals, and people is going to be immense. This is pre-Paris agreement when we were talking about 4 degrees C. Next slide. The current pathways that we're on right now is 3 degrees C. That's good. It's not nearly as warm. You can see the difference. And the difference is huge. So that's good. Keep that in your mind. That's good. Next slide. This is what the countries have pledged now. We want to stay at 2 degrees C. 2 degrees is a magic line that we don't want to cross. And that's primarily because of the melting of methane. But we can talk about that later if you want to. Anyway, this is what it would look like. This is a much better planet than that one. Next slide. This is what we really want. We want to stay at or below 1.5. Can we do it? No, we can't. We're going to go up to 2, but then I think we're going to go back down to 1.5. That's maybe we won't hit 2. Let's hope we go just to 1.8. But anyway. This is what we want. Next slide. This is for Albuquerque and Santa Fe. This is the observed temperatures, again, from Earth Day, the beginning of Earth Day. 2020 is here. If we stay on the current pathways, going up to 3 degrees C, this is what Albuquerque and Santa Fe is going to be. That's 10 degrees warmer than it was in 1970. 10 degrees! Holy mackerel! This is what we want for the desired pathway. It's still warmer, and somebody else can do the math because I can't remember right now what it is, but anyway, it's a lot less. That's what we want. And we can fight for it, and we can do it. Next slide. Okay, so now this is warming over a lifetime. This is an entire lifetime now. This is again for Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And here we have the different generations. I've put cheat sheet numbers down here because I couldn't remember what years the millennials were. But the millennials are from 27 to 44 years old right now. Anyway, this shows you how warm. I'm a baby boomer. I'm not going to hit 4 degrees probably. But my stepchildren are going to go above 6 if they were in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. It's pretty scary. And this is Gen Z, this is Gen Alpha. I didn't even know there was a Gen Alpha, but anyway, they're the real young ones. Next slide. This is what we want if we really want to work on cutting. This is the desired pathway. We're going to cut. So still, the Gen X's are going to get hit, but it's going to come down, and that's what we need. We need that to happen. Next slide. Okay, this is like the slide I told you before. It doesn't come up like this and show you the cone. But these are model temperatures, and it's going to go all the way out to 2100. And it's assuming that we stay on business as usual and we don't do anything. It's going to get warmer and warmer and warmer. Holy mackerel. 2100, it has it going all the way out to 5 degrees. That's average global, and this is in degrees C, not in degrees F. So it's a very scary plot if we stay on business as usual. What I'm trying to get across is we have to get off of our fannies and not stay on business as usual, because we can't have the world going up to 5 degrees C. Next slide. Now, there's something, when you warm ice, it melts. Everybody knows that. Well, you'd think that we would understand how ice melts in Greenland, or how we could understand how ice melts in the Antarctic. We have a very, very hard time understanding this, because what happens to this water? Does it go down into the middle and refreeze? Does it go down to the bottom and act as a skid to allow the ice to flow out? It's a very tough situation trying to figure out the science behind melting ice. I know it sounds weird, but it is. So it's hard to say how high sea levels are going to go because of the melting ice. We can figure it out by warming. As water warms, it expands, and that causes sea level to go up. But most of the sea level is going to be coming from these ice sheets. Next slide. We know now that we have already passed the tipping point for melting Greenland. Let me say that again. We've passed the tipping point for melting Greenland. No matter what we do, we cannot stop Greenland from melting. And it has 27 to 29 feet of sea level rise just in Greenland. I'm not talking about Antarctica too, just Greenland. Let me show you the next slide. That's what Florida will look like with 28 feet of sea level rise. Our planet is going to look very different as we warm because of sea level rise. Next slide. Okay, so that tells you what we can look for in the future. And there's things we can do to change the really bad aspects. Now let's talk about other species, because most people don't talk about other species. Again, the acorn woodpecker, which occurs here in New Mexico, is going to be at very high risk of not being able to be reproducing in New Mexico if we go up 3 degrees C. Okay, next slide. This is a slide. I was lucky enough with my late husband in 1994, I think it was. We went to the North Pole, and we saw ice everywhere, and we saw polar bears everywhere. And the polar bears will kill the seals out on the ice, and then they fling these seals around and they literally get blood and guts everywhere. And that's a good thing, because this little guy, the ivory gull, that's how it makes its living. It goes around to all this blood and guts that has been thrown around, and that's how it lives. Well, we don't have the ice there anymore. That's good for the seals. It is, but it's not good for the polar bears, and it's definitely not good for the ivory gull. So unless I get hit by a Mack truck tomorrow, I'm 69, I will bet you that in my lifetime, my natural lifetime, this little guy will be extinct. It's going to go extinct on my watch. But the point of this is to show how interlocked species and nature really are. So if you push here, everything else down there gets changed. Next slide. I think you all know that spring is coming earlier and earlier. It's outside right now. It's beautiful outside. It's coming earlier and earlier. The people in DC are very upset about the fact that it's not staying the same, because they want to have this standard time when they have the cherry blossom celebration. And you can't have the standard time for a cherry blossom celebration because the cherry blossoms are blooming earlier. So that's what's happening in DC. So it's disrupting the politics that way. It's disrupting when the pollinators need to be out. It's disrupting everything that's being affected by this warming. Birds are coming back earlier to breed. They need insects around, on and on and on. Next slide. The other thing that they're doing is species are shifting their ranges. They're shifting their ranges up mountains, and they're shifting toward the poles where it's cooler. So everything's trying to move. They're moving north in the northern hemisphere, south in the southern hemisphere, and up in the mountains. Now, this is a study that was done by John Terborg in 1985. And what he found is, next slide, he found that the common scaleback ant wren went from here up to 800 meters on the mountain. That's as far as it went. Next slide. The versicolored barbet went from about that location up to a little bit higher than 1,200 meters. Next slide. And the variable ant shrike was sitting up here at the top. John's students went back and did his exact same transect. Next slide. This was done in 2017. So now what has happened is the antbird has shifted up, the barbet has shifted up, and the ant shrike had nowhere to go. It's now been extirpated on this mountain. So that's what's happening around in the US too. Species that are up on the tops of mountains, like the Sky Islands, they're going extinct. They're going extinct on our watch because they don't have any place to go. They don't know that if they come down the mountain, go across the desert, and go up the next higher mountain, they could survive up there. They don't know that. Some people are actually helping them move, but we don't have enough willpower and money to move as many as we need to. But anyway, range shifts are already happening. Next slide. This is the study that was done by Audubon. And Audubon, it's a fabulous study. What they did was they wanted to see if we go up 1.5 degrees C above natural, what will happen? If we go up 2 degrees C, what will happen? And if we go up 3 degrees C, what will happen? That's why it says survival by degrees. And what they're trying to show is we want to stay at 1.5. So the mountain chickadee, which I love, I see it outside my window every single day, will not be able to breed in New Mexico if we go up 3 degrees. Next slide. So they found out, the Audubon Society found out, that there are 389 North American birds on the brink of extinction. They didn't say extinction. I was on the board at the time. I told them they should say extinction, but they didn't. They just said on the brink. Next slide. That is 2/3 of all of the North American birds are at risk of extinction if we go up by 3 degrees. Next slide. You guys can look at this too. It really is a superb, superb website. You go to audubon.org/climate/survival by degrees, or just put in climate, birds, survival by degrees, and you'll get it. And you type in a zip code, and you can look and see what's happening. Next slide. So I did that. I typed in our zip code. And so they're saying that the New Mexico breeding birds that are highly vulnerable, i.e. at the brink, at an increase of 1.5 degrees C, which is 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Now remember how warm we were going to get in Albuquerque and Santa Fe? 3.5. We're already past this. Anyway, next slide. There are 2 species, just 2, that are vulnerable. Next slide. The red-naped sapsucker, which my husband and I saw just this weekend, and the Cassin's finch, which we see every day outside of our window. They will no longer be able to breed in New Mexico. Next slide. Now, if we go up 2 degrees, that's 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Next slide. There's 11 species, 2 to 11. Now, we can go through these pretty quickly. Dusky grouse, next slide. Broad-tailed hummingbirds, we have those right now. Next slide. Williamson sapsucker, next. Dusky flycatcher, next. Clark's nutcracker, next. Pygmy nuthatch, next. Townsend solitaire, we all have those in the winter, next. White-crowned sparrow, next. And then we have the green-tailed towhee. It's a lot of birds that we see all the time. Now, what happens, next slide, if we go up by 3 degrees? Think in your mind, how many birds do you think that would be? Next slide. 42. Next slide. There they are. There's a lot of birds in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. No, not Albuquerque, Santa Fe, right in this area, that are going to be affected. It's very sobering, and it's going to be because of us. And I have a moral problem with one species, us, causing that many species to be vulnerable. So we don't want to go up 3 degrees C. That's what I want to get across. Please, please, please. We don't want to go up 3 degrees C. Next slide. The other thing is that I'm telling you these species are moving around. They're going towards the poles. They're going up in the... They're trying to get across this. That's what the world looks like now. Next slide. How would you like to be a monarch trying to get across that way? So this is a plea, and I want you all to make a pledge to me today. Don't ever plant another plant outside unless you're going to eat it. That's different. If you're not going to eat it, don't plant anything that is not a native plant. We've got to have native plants. How do you know what native plants are here in Santa Fe? Next slide. You go to Audubon. Plants for birds. You type in plants for birds, you type in your zip code, and it will give you a list of all of the native plants in your area. It couldn't be more simple. So that's the way to do it. What happened? Uh-oh. Oh, there we are. We're back again. I don't know what happened. Anyway, please don't ever plant another non-native plant unless you're going to eat it, please. Next slide. Now, everything goes extinct. So scientists have said the background extinction rate is less than 1 species in 1,000 species over 1,000 years. So think of a great big island. You populate it with 1,000 species. You let it run for 1,000 years, and less than 1 species will go extinct. That's what that's saying. Let me tell you what the extinction rate is now. Extinction rate now is about 1 species in 10 species, not 1,000 species, over less than 100 years. So we are already in this sixth mass extinction event. It really is happening, and it's happening on our watch. Next slide. Now, in 2007, I was on the IPCC, the fourth assessment report, and we came up with this thing that said that if, and I would say now it's when we go up 2 degrees C above natural, which is 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above natural, that means that we're going to lose 500,000 birds, species, I'm a bird person, species, plants and animals, 500,000 plants and animals to extinction. They're going to go extinct. Now, there's probably 8 to 10 million species on the planet, but we know the names of about 2 million, so I'm only worried about the 2 million. So what that shows is, next slide, is we will lose about a fourth of the world's species to extinction when we go up 2 degrees C. This is what we said in 2007. Next slide. We were wrong. Dead wrong. Next slide. We now know that when we go up to 2 degrees C, we're going to lose 1 million species, and that's roughly half of the world's species. And I promise you, there are going to be species in there that we need to stay alive, to clean our air, clean our water, pollinate our crops. All of those things, we need those species. It's going to be tough. Not fun for the species going extinct. Not good for us either. Absolutely not good for us either. Next slide. Okay, are you ready to slit your wrists? Okay. I want you to realize how dire this really is. It truly, I'm not making it up, and a lot of the work that's coming out now is saying that it's actually worse than what I've just told you. It's not better, it is worse. It's going more rapidly. So we have to do something. We don't have a choice. Next slide. What we have to do is we have to have a paradigm shift. This is a paradigm shift. Blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. Okay, woman. Any woman in here have a man blow in her face? What did you do? I deck him. We have to have a paradigm shift. But we've had. This shows 2 paradigm shifts. 2! We've had the paradigm shift where it is no longer acceptable to smoke in public. Woohoo! You don't have to sit on an airplane and say, I want no smoking. Never happened anyway. That was a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift, too, in feminism, right? We still have a long way to go, in my opinion, on that, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I honestly believe we're starting a paradigm shift with climate change. And I think that the younger people of this world are pushing it, and we've got to help them. We've got to not get in their way. The paradigm shift is very important because that means we have the political will and the social will to do something. Next slide. We now have the Inflation Reduction Act. Now the Senate is trying to roll it back. And I want you to call all your senators and tell them not to do that. But the Inflation Reduction Act has put $369 billion, with a B, billion dollars toward working on climate issues in America. Woohoo! That's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. What it is saying is now what we're showing here is this is time on the x-axis. On the y-axis is gigatons of CO2 equivalent, greenhouse gases, in other words. In 2005, it was 6.6. And what we wanted to do was by 2030 be down to 50% of 2005. So that would be 3.3. By everything that Biden has put forward, he's going to get it to 3.8. It's close enough to 3.3 for me. Come on, we're we're getting there, we're doing it. It's really working. So the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, is very important in America. Next slide. Okay, what is going to be cut? Cut by 2030. Okay, primarily it's going to be power, transportation, and some industry. So next, this is the percentages that they're going to cut. So we're going to cut almost 30% in transportation, the emissions in transportation by 2030. Can we do it? Absolutely. We can do it. Next slide. What that means is we're going to have to cut 280 million tons of CO2 equivalent out of transportation. Can we do it? Yeah, we can, and I'll talk to you about that. Next slide. For power, we're going to cut it by 360 million tons. For industry, next slide, 130, and for these three together is 210. Totally, next slide, we're going to be cutting 980 million tons of emissions. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not, but we can do it. Next slide. This is one of the ways that they're going to do it. They're going to cut petroleum products. Who's upset about this? The petroleum lobby, right? But what they're saying is we're going to cut, this is time on this axis, and this is millions of barrels. And so in 2024, we're going to cut down the millions of barrels by 48 million barrels. Then we're going to go by 280 million barrels, 526 million barrels, on down. Can we do it? I'm a little bit worried about this because we are a plastic society. And where do we get plastic? Barrels of oil. For every pound of plastic that is produced, 6 pounds of CO2 goes up in the atmosphere. We're going to be using a lot of plastics, and we're just, if you see the curve, it's going up like this. So by 2050, are we going to be able to not mine this many barrels? It's going to be hard. But that's the other thing we have to do, is we have to get ourselves off of plastics. And we can do that too. And I'll tell you how to do that in October. Next slide. Okay, this is a very important plot, and it's very complicated, so I'm going to build it for you. So now what this is the yearly capacity addition. So it's how much they're adding each year, okay? And this is gigawatts per year. So this is how much they're going to add each year. And we go back to 2015 and come all the way out here to 2035. Next slide. Okay, so in 2022 to 2024, we're going to mine coal, but we're going to have carbon sequestration. We haven't done that yet. That's new. It's going to be here, and it's going to be here. I don't know why it's not here too, but that's what the model said. Oh, it's a little bit here. Next slide. This is how much we're mining gas right now, natural gas. It's not going to change much. We're not going to do much about it. We're not going to focus on that in the IRA. Next slide. This is now gas with carbon sequestration. We haven't done that before. We're going to start it here, here, a little bit here. We're going to start sequestering. We can talk about sequestering. I have trouble with it, but we can talk about it. Next slide. Nuclear. We had for some reason, we had an addition of nuclear back then, and I need to find out where that came from. If anybody knows that, please tell me afterwards. But there's no nuclear here. None. I want to point that out. This is for the IRA. We're not putting in nuclear. Next slide. Onshore wind. This is something that I work on really hard. I'm on a board that works with wind people and wildlife people. And we've been working to try and increase this as much as we possibly can. This is what they're talking about. This is addition of gigawatts per year. Addition, 29 gigawatts per year. It's going to go up, go up, go up, go up, go up, up. Next slide. This is offshore wind. I think this is a mistake. I think we need to be putting more in offshore wind, but this is what they're planning. Some. I hope it'll be more than that. Next slide. Solar. Woohoo! Look at that. We've been piddle-diddling around, and now it doubled here in 2020, but now we're really going to go all out. So now I want you to understand this too. If you're an investor, it's time to start investing in solar or wind. Anyway, next slide. So this is showing you how much additional is going to be coming from these various groups of gigawatts. Next slide. People will always say, we can't have wind because it kills birds. It doesn't kill birds. This is how many birds turbines kill, and I'm sorry, I don't know the year. I should tell you. This is per year, and this I should tell you when the study was, but I don't remember when the study was. Anyway, then you look at electrocution, running into towers, running into power lines, getting hit by automobiles, hitting windows. This should say that we shouldn't have any windows. If you don't want turbines to kill them, well, don't have windows. But the real thing that's killing them are cats. 4 orders of magnitude. If you have a cat, that's fantastic. Don't let it outside. If you absolutely have to let it outside, only during the day, not at night. And this feral cats, we need to do something about feral cats. When I was on the board at Audubon, I said we need to take on the cat people, and the CEO looked at me and said, in your dreams, lady, there's no way. But that's what's killing birds. This is in a year. This is primarily young birds being taken at night. So forget this thing about turbines hurting birds or solar power hurting birds. Next slide. This is now the employment from the IRA. Again, we have years down here, and this is number of thousands of jobs per each of these. And so we're looking at CO2 transportation and storage, the grid, we've got to do something about the grid, solar manufacturing, we're going to bring that here instead of pushing it over to China. Solar other, this is setting it up, working at making it work in general. Wind manufacturing, wind other, natural gas, oil, and coal. Those are all down here. So we're going to lose these jobs. We got to do something for the people who work in those industries. Can we do that? Of course we can do that. Of course we can. The coal union understands what's coming, and they are trying to train their employees, their union folks, for other jobs. They see the writing on the wall. We just need to. But that's why, excuse me, that's why this point isn't all the way up here, because it had this much reduced. But this is 303,000 jobs, 2 million jobs, 2.3 million jobs. Holy mackerel. That's by 2035. Not bad. That's good for the country. Next slide. This, to me, is the most hopeful slide in the whole thing. Down on the bottom are locations, and up here is per capita. You're going to get to know me. I like per capita things. This is tons of CO2 emitted per person in 2020. And it's divided now up by state. So you have New York, California, and Maryland. I used to live in California. I never met a resolution I didn't like. That's what we could say in California. California loves regulations. It really does. But the point is, those people in New York, California, and Maryland, they know what to do. They know how to put a little bit of CO2 in the air, but not a lot. Then we have the US, this is the average. Nevada's here, New Mexico's on the wrong side. We need to push it. And we're putting in, hopefully, we're putting in a huge wind power farm, and that will help. I think that will help. It will certainly help. Well, we can talk about that. It'll help a lot. But then we have these crazy states. Not good. Wyoming basically burns coal. I used to show a plot like this was 2016, and somebody complained and said, well, it's 2016, they've changed. They don't just work on coal anymore. So I thought, okay, the new data for 2020 is going to come out. This is going to shrink. There's something wrong here. And when we have the political will, we can change this federally. And I truly believe we can do that because we know what to do. Does it take regulation? Absolutely. George W. was very upset about climate change because he realized that we were going to have to be regulated. So he's the one who turned it into a Republican and Democratic issue. But my late husband used to say, I've never seen a Republican fire and a Democratic flood. It got changed in our minds. We've got to change it back and say, this is the environment we're talking about, not politics. Next slide. Okay, so where's the greenhouse gases coming from in the US right now? We have 25% is coming from electricity. Our lights, oh, the lights aren't on. Our lights are the transportation, 27%. Agriculture is 11, commercial and residential is 13, and industry is 24. Okay, we're gonna attack this. Right here in this room, we're gonna attack this. Next slide. What we all need and must do, and we can. Next slide. For electricity, we all need to be adamantly supporting renewable energy. Solar rooftops. You have a rooftop that's naked up there. Why can't you put solar on it? We can. Unless you have a beautiful tree that you don't want to cut down, then put it on the ground. You can have solar for your home. We need to be supporting solar farms. That I have a little bit harder time with because oftentimes, at least in Florida, when we lived in Florida, they were putting solar farms in pristine areas. And I didn't like that. That's why I really pushed rooftops. So solar farms, they're getting more creative now, and it's better, but we need to be supporting them. Wind farms, they don't kill birds. An ordinary turbine kills 3.2 to 3.7 small birds per turbine per year. Per year! So we don't need to worry about that. We do need to worry about bats. That's a whole different issue, and we can talk about that if you want to. Only buy Energy Star. If you're going to go get a new appliance, go online, find out the ones that are energy efficient, and use it and buy it. You can do it. Is it going to be more money? Yeah. Is it going to be the right thing to do? Yes. And I can't believe that I still have to say this, but I go in people's homes and I still see that people have incandescent light bulbs. Throw them in the trash. They're better in a landfill. And that includes your Christmas tree lights. You know the Christmas tree lights that I've had ever since I was a little kid? Throw them in the landfill. Next slide. Transportation. Electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids. I want you all to make a pact with me today. When you buy your next car, I'm not saying go out and buy it right now, but when you're going to buy your next car, make sure it plugs in. It can either be fully electric, and they are so much fun to drive. We have a Leaf, and when I was in Florida, I don't do it in New Mexico. I'd come up to stoplights, and one of these big, huge trucks would come up and pull in, and we'd make eye contact, and he'd say, oh, there's this gray-haired lady sitting there, and he'd go, vroom, 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 vroom. And I'd just look at him, and the light would turn, and I did that, sorry. It's okay, we can, okay. Anyway, it would go vroom, 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 and the light would change, and I would just be out. I'd hit 0 to 80, as my husband would say. Terry, you're going 80 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. I said, yeah, but I beat the truck. They're fun. They're fun to drive. If you're worried about the gas issue, then get a plug-in hybrid. My husband and I just got a plug-in hybrid. It gets 40 miles. We can go all the way into town and come back out, all on electric. If you get something, if you get something that doesn't have 40 miles, you're going to have to go onto gas. So the larger the electric engine, the better it is. But please, make a pact with me that your next car is going to be a plug-in. I also want to say, too, I want you to make a pact with me. Don't ever say again that you believe in climate change or that you believe in global warming. It's not a belief. It's a fact. Okay, next slide. Agriculture. We need to get off of beef and lamb. And this includes what you feed your pets. Can you do that? You can do that. I promise you, you can. Pick a day, meatless Monday. No dairy, no meat on Monday. And then when you get that down, go up to meatless Wednesdays, and meatless Saturdays, and meatless lots of days, and dairyless, okay? It truly will make a huge difference. If you have to buy beef, I suggest you go to bluenestbeef.com. I don't own any stock in it. It is a group that is actually raising beef and making sure that grassland birds are not declining. They are doing it in a beautiful way. There's several beef growers that are doing that now. I just know Blue Nest Beef, so I just put it up there. It is certified by Audubon as being good for the grassland birds, which are plummeting in abundance. Next slide. Okay, commercial and residential. We need to talk to all of our county commissioners, and we need to change the rules and say no more buildings are going to be built that are not zero emission. Is it going to cost more money? Mm-hmm. Is it the right thing to do? Mm-hmm. And we know how to do it. It's not rocket science. We know how to do it. Can we do it? We just have to convince our commissioners. It's not fun going and arguing with commissioners, but it may be worth it. Now we come to industry, and that is a really tough one because we're going to need all this cement to act as dikes when we're having sea level rise. That's going to put a lot of CO2 up into the atmosphere. Cement puts a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere. So what do we do? I don't know. I truly don't know. My big thing is we need to be planting trees. And I know that sounds really lame, but it is really important. And one of the places that does the best tree planting is a place called cooleffect.org. There are places that will plant trees, and they plant fast-growing trees, which are the wrong species in the wrong place at the wrong time. We want to have species planted that are the appropriate ones. And cooleffect.org actually does it. Again, I have no association with them at all. I've just done a lot of research, and they're really good. So we can all do this. That's what I'm meaning by saying hope. It's not just somebody else over there doing it. You know, the thing is, people say, oh, come on, Terry, big deal. Meatless Mondays, what's it going to do? You know what it's going to do? It's going to remind you all day, 24 hours, that we have a problem when we need to be doing something about it. So even if you think this is lame, it's really important. So all of these things, we can do these. Just be attuned to them. Next slide. This is more important than anything else. We have got to have political will. We have to have political will. And this is the way that we do it. If you need to register to vote, please register to vote. This is super important. Next slide. It went away again. Okay, well, it was the Earthrise. There it is. Earthrise. Well, you saw it really quickly. Earthrise. Earthrise over. I don't know what's going on. There it is. I bet most of you know where you were the very first time you saw that picture. When I saw that, I was not very old, and I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, look how tiny it is. Look how beautiful it is. and it's going to be up to us to save it. And can we save it? Absolutely. Do I have hope? Absolutely. I wouldn't be standing here if I had no hope. I'd be at Disneyland. Actually, I'd probably be in Australia or someplace, but I don't know. I have a lot of hope, and I do know that we can do this. So I want to tell you thank you. Next slide. Tell you thank you for listening. This is how you can get in hold of me if you want to, but I really do appreciate you listening to me. Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? Debbie, can we do questions?
We do, and we also have a very important desire to fill out your evaluation and your application. So while you're listening to your friends ask questions,
Please fill out the evaluations, okay? Please do that. Okay, yes, sir.
Okay, you said you liked the capital, and that gets me to a question that I'm not a scientific person, so it's kind of anecdotal, observational thing.
That's fine.
Do we have any chance to defeat this problem unless we start reducing our own numbers? It seems like
You,
getting more efficient, but you've got a developing world, you've got more and more people.
yes. This is the question, and it is the huge big elephant that is standing in the room right here. It's we have too many people on our planet. And Paul Ehrlich said that a long time ago. The other thing is that the people that are on the planet are using too much stuff. So what we need to do is decrease our population and decrease the stuff we are doing. And that's what I was talking about, what we can be doing here. Can we, will we decrease population? We have no choice. We have to. And they say now that we're going to go to 8.8 billion and then it's going to come back down. The trouble is that the economists have always talked about economic growth. And to have economic growth, you have to have more people coming, more people coming, more people coming. We need to have a we need to have another paradigm shift. Let's say it that way. We have to have a paradigm shift that says that it's okay if we don't have that much growth. So that's a tough one. That's a real tough one. And the reason that I don't talk about it is because I have found that if I talk about population in my talks, everybody concentrates on that and doesn't listen to everything else. And so when I first started giving this talk, decades ago, I would talk about population. And now I've decided I'll wait till somebody in the audience comes in. And I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, at Ben's point, and you mentioned it, the issue is not overpopulation, the issue is overconsumption.
It's both.
This overconsumption is much larger. We have 8 million people this year. The last billion we added, for example, 1970, all the Chinese got bicycle with Indians and everything else. This last billion added, they consume 8 times more.
That's right.
They added 8 billion, not a billion.
That's right.
Just a couple points in your talk.
Uh-huh.
Building the wind machines, as you point out, takes an enormous amount of concrete, which is very highly polluted. Also takes an
Doesn't-
enormous amount of copper.
I will disagree with you as far as an enormous amount of concrete. An enormous amount of concrete, your definition of enormous and my definition of enormous are two very, very, very different things. They need to have a platform upon which they're sitting. Yeah, not quite 60 feet. It depends. Okay, well, go ahead.
The other thing is, we're building, as we speak, China and India, for example, are building a 1,200 megawatt coal-fired electric generation plant a week.
I know.
These are gonna last for 70 years, and new mines are being opened in Australia and Indonesia, South Africa, to supply them. So I don't see how we're gonna make that turn from that perspective.
Well, I think we inevitably are going to, because they're going to be affected by the climate as much as anybody else, and they're going to realize what the cause is, and they're going to make a change. I have a lot of faith in people, and I really believe that yes, they are building those. Are they going to last for 70 years? I would be willing to bet you absolutely not. I'd bet you $1 million that they won't last to 70 years. Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have to pick which question I want to ask. Well, I want to ask you about bats, but that's probably not the main thing, but maybe later I can ask you.
Okay, we can talk about bats. Let me tell you really quickly. As the turbine is moving around, the bats are curious, and that's what is bringing them in.
Can we do something about that?
We are trying. We are trying really hard. I'm on a group that is really working hard on it. Some bats are not curious at all, and they aren't being affected. Some are so curious they can't figure out why the vortices are being created in the air, and so bats are in trouble. And I think we're going to have to. Okay. I don't like saying this, but I think that what we are going to have to do is say we have got to sacrifice some species in order to not lose all the other species. And I think some of those species are going to be our precious bats. I know, it's horrible.
Also worth mentioning that among all the species of bat in North America, it's a small percentage of bats that are affected by
Right.
turbines.
Right.
Depends upon their habitat, their migration,
Yeah.
where they get
Yeah.
stuff of that nature, source of food. For example, the most obvious reason was insectivorous bats. That in the open area, you can forest bats are not affected at all.
Anyway, that's not your question you didn't want to ask.
Well, I'm always curious about methane and this whole round about natural gas, because isn't methane have a much higher heat trapping?
Can be up to 80 more than 80% stronger than CO2.
So, and natural gas is trapping, right?
Natural gas is a real problem, particularly in New Mexico and in Texas. We have so many oil wells that are uncapped, and they are losing methane into the atmosphere. How are we going to get those capped? Well, they're not going to do it by themselves, so we're going to have the political will. I get back to this political will issue. We have got to get the political will to get that out there and stopping. The magic number of 2 degrees C is really magic, because at 2 degrees C, we melt the clathrates, and a clathrate is frozen methane in the oceans. And when you melt all of those clathrates, that methane goes directly up into the atmosphere, and we are going to spike. We're going to go from 2 degrees, and some people are saying up to 4 degrees within 20 years. Other people are saying 8 degrees in 20 years. If that happens, the amount of suffering is going to be immense. So we really, really want to stay below this magic number of 2 degrees because of the methane. Methane is huge, huge. And we have now found that we are not keeping track of our methane well enough. So, Fred.
I totally share everybody's concern about population and the idea of how can we go on doing what we're doing when there are lots of other people around the world who don't live the way we live. But the per capita number was going down in the U.S.
Right.
A good statement. On the other hand, it was going up in China and up in India, and just this week they think that in another 5 years, India will have more people than China. And so I think the answer to all of that is you don't let those issues change what you do, and you
Right.
lead by example.
Right.
And whether or not somebody is going to be dragged along by legal action or whatever, that should not deter you from leading by example. Because some people, it takes, it takes the massive fire in New Mexico for New Mexicans to realize, oh my goodness, it's really happening.
Right.
Other people can
Right.
see it coming, right? But that doesn't change the fact that we
Right, precisely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned it a little bit, but what role do you think nuclear power?
Oh, nuclear power. Well, back in the day, I protested very strongly against nuclear power. I didn't care if I got arrested, I was there. If you had told me then what I was going to say now, I would have said you were absolutely nuts. We can't take it off the table. And that scares me a lot. I am, and this is my bias, I am worried about the million species that are going to go extinct. And if nuclear power can help us not hit 1 million and maybe hit 500,000, that's good. Does that mean we're going to have a horrible something later? Yeah, it could be. It could be. But the other thing that I want to say is that there are nuclear power plants that are small, that are safe, that can run cities. And I would like that kind of nuclear. I was surprised that it wasn't in the IRA. But anyway, my bottom line right now is don't take it off the table. We can hopefully take it off the table later when we have enough solar and we have enough other renewables, not nuclear. Because you're not getting rid of the waste. What are you going to do with the waste?
Probably better technologies in nuclear power
Yes,
than we had in the 60s.
that's exactly right. Right.
I think it's probably our responsibility to push people towards safer.
Safer. Right. And I think small nuclear plant, the things that are on nuclear submarines, they're very safe. We can run cities. We can run small cities with those. We can do that. It's possible. So my knee jerk back decades ago is now no longer a knee jerk. Yeah. Yeah, hold on. Go ahead. We tried to find another time and it was taken, so we have to wait till October to talk about plastics. Yep, plastics and animals. Jim, this is my husband. He's busting a gut to say something.
People bring up the China thing all the time, okay, about so many coal power plants and stuff like that. But us compared to China, we're not progressive. China is incredibly progressive in terms of environmental issues. They have more, how many, more than half, more than 3/4 of the electric cars produced and used are in China, not here. They're experimenting with nuclear power plants. We were talking to a wind guy that's going to be down, talk about the biggest wind thing in the world.
In North America.
He says the bigger ones in China. And so they have a massive problem with having a lot more people who are being more consumer related, like you said, and stuff like that. But they're pulling out all the stops. And if we can share technology, they can remind us. So I'm not for China. I'm just saying this is.
But sharing technology, and remember that plot that I said that was old from 2016, and it had the green and it had red, green, blue, and red, and black? The green and the blue are the ones where we share technology. So, yes, sir. You stop me when you need to stop, okay?
Is anybody anxious to go in a few more questions?
Okay. Of course. Can I give them to you to share my slides so they can get you? Devin can do it for me. Okay, yes, I will. I am happy. I'm happy to do that. The trouble is that some of the ones that build on each other don't build very well when you share them. But anyway, we'll do it.
That list at the end of the things that we can do would really be nice to get out to every member of our congregation.
what I need to do is I need to write up a thing saying this is what we all need to do. So tell me to do that, maybe I'll do it. I'll twist my arm. Okay.
By October.
Okay. Yes, sir.
As you were talking about scientific progression and what it's taught us and what it allows us to do, and we talk about technological innovation and its progression and what it makes us capable of doing. And then as people brought up overpopulation, Garrett Hardin came out of his grave into my head.
Yes.
And his concern that technological solutions are bound to be short-term in nature, and then what's really necessary is a fundamental change in human values.
Yes.
And here's my question. You talk about a paradigm shift among young people. Is that a value change here?
Yes, I think it's a value. It's very much a value change. It's having them do something differently than how we have done it. Yes, very, very much. Yeah. Yes, sir.
One of the most inspiring things that I've seen over the last few years was a documentary called Kiss the Ground.
Yes, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, but Kiss the Ground is a documentary that everybody has told me about, and I haven't seen it. I should see it.
One of the things that was inspiring was the potential for regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
To solve carbon problem. And they point
Yes.
out we all were made out of carbon. The problem is the carbon in the air rather than the carbon in the soil. And so.
Good, very good. I'm so glad you said that. The other thing that I used to tell people is I want you to go out and find 5 of your friends that don't agree with climate change and have a dinner with all of them. It's okay, don't worry, you're not going to get lambasted. Go ahead and have the dinner and show the movie Chasing Ice. Chasing Ice, it's now old, it's a documentary. It was done by James Baylog. It is gorgeous cinematography, and basically what it is watching ice melt. It sounds really, really boring. It is not boring at all. And what happens is that documentary will convince the people in your room that they need to be thinking about climate change. And then it's over, and then you start talking about now what we can actually be doing. And it has worked. I've seen it work. So, who hasn't asked a question? I'm trying.
2 more questions. I feel like recently, in the past few years, there's been this realization of this concept of greenwashing.
Greenwashing?
And now I feel like suddenly people are like, we don't have to turn off the electricity, we don't have to recycle, we don't have to do anything anymore because it's not us, it's the companies that are going to make the difference. But I still feel like I need to recycle. So should we still recycle and turn the lights off and stuff?
You should still recycle. You should still turn the lights off. You should also get an electric car. You should do all of those things because it really does make a difference. Are there companies, I want to put it that way, are there companies that are not doing the right thing? Absolutely there are. But there are a lot more companies getting on the bandwagon saying, oh my God, we got to worry about our bottom line, and so we got to be on top of this. And so they're doing things ahead of schedule. So you've got to find the companies who are doing things ahead of schedule and support them, and just let the others just flounder. Just let them flounder. Do what you think is right. Just exactly what Fred said. We need to be leading by example, and we can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just always have this feeling that we're a little coven, kind of.
We are.
Most of the world is just thinking about survival. How do we get
That's right.
the world
That's
to
right.
take notice, not just some
No.
politicians and more people that really have it pretty well? I mean, how do we spread the word where it's not just like TM? 1% of the population, will change the world. I don't think that happened.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be,
No.
optimistic,
That's
but is it going to have to
That's
get
right.
worse before it gets better?
Well,
Before the world
okay.
advances?
I could show. Can you show one more? Can we show one more slide? Okay. Yeah. Just hit it. Okay. In 1990, here the scientist is with the IPCC. So, this climate change thing could be a problem. Next slide. 1995, climate change, definitely a problem. 2001, yep, we should really be getting on with sorting this out pretty soon. 2007, look, sorry to sound like a broken record here, but 2013, we really have checked and we're not making this up. 2019, is this thing even on? That addresses what you're saying. So I've been working on this literally since 1987. And now finally people are listening because there's the floods, there's the snow in the mountains, there's all these things that are happening. And people are saying, oh my God, it really is happening. And so there's a group of people, and it's about 25 to 30% of the people that are always going to say climate change isn't important. Let them say it. Let's talk to the other 85 to 70% and really figure out how we can work with those people, because we can change their minds and make them from being, I think it's a problem, to, oh my God, it is a problem. And I truly, truly believe that we can do this. Now, does that mean somebody who is living hand to mouth and barely has enough food to do anything? I don't think I have the right, morally, to go up to them and say, well, you should get an electric car. They can't even feed themselves. Let them be. Look at the people in this room. Every person in this room has the ability to do a lot. And all of your friends, I bet you, all of your friends could do that. So we have to be focusing on the people who can do that. Is it too little, too late? It's too little, too late, but I don't think that means there's no hope. Because if we had started back here, we wouldn't be losing half the species on the planet. We would only be losing a quarter. But we're starting back here. And now we're going to lose, we could very easily lose half the species on the planet. Does that mean that we throw up and go home? No. I'm going to be out there saving that other half.
It's interesting, we talk about birds and these other species. What about us?
Yeah.
You know, we're on the
Yeah.
endangered list.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, in Australia, when I moved back to the U.S., I would say politicians didn't care about climate change. They got hit by floods, and they got hit by fire, and I think 80–90% of the people are now on board. United Nations could change the
That's right. It is. So anyway, and we've just got to do what we can do. That's all you can do. But do as much as you can. As much as you can. And remember, you made pacts with me today. Okay? I'm going to hold you to all of those pacts. No more I believe in climate change. No, your next car is going to be a plug-in. Okay? Thank you.
One suggestion for your next presentation after number 3,
Yep.
serve some margaritas.
Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.
I'm just so thrilled.
That was fun.
Aware and motivated when they got here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so glad you
Oh.
speak.
Thank you.